I didn't notice the rooms at first. That's the part that bothers me now, looking back on it. You'd think something like that would stand out immediately, like a wrong note in a quiet song. But it didn't. It blended in with everything else: the humming fluorescent lights, the distant beeping monitors, the low murmur of machines doing their jobs without question. Night shift has a way of flattening everything into the same dull rhythm. After a few hours, your brain stops asking questions. It just accepts. I've been working nights at St. Alders for about 8 months now. Not long enough to feel seasoned, but long enough to stop feeling new. The job itself is simple on paper. I'm a patient care tech. Vitals, transport, cleaning up when things get messy. Stay out of the nurse's way, follow instructions, write everything down. Most nights, nothing happens. Or at least nothing that sticks with you. That's why I took the shift in the East Wing. Nobody likes the East Wing. Not because of anything official. There's no policy against it, no warning in the handbook. But if you've been here longer than a week, you know. It's where they move patients when the hospital is over capacity. Old rooms, outdated equipment, long hallways that don't quite match the rest of the building. It used to be a psychiatric unit years ago, before they renovated everything else and left that section behind. Temporary overflow, they call it. Temporary has lasted 6 years. I picked it because it was quiet, less foot traffic, fewer interruptions. The kind of place where you could get through a 12-hour shift without anyone breathing down your neck. That's what I wanted. That's what I thought I was getting. My first night over there felt normal enough. The lights were dimmer than the rest of the hospital. Not broken, just softer. Like they'd been turned down a notch. The floors had that older tile pattern, slightly uneven if you paid attention while walking. My shoes made a different sound on it. Hollow. There were 12 rooms in total on that hall. 6 on each side. Only 5 were occupied when I started that night. I remember because I counted. Room 101, 102, 104, 107, and 109. The others were empty. Doors open, lights off, beds stripped. Standard. Or at least that's how it looked. Around 1:30 a.m., things started to feel off. Not in a dramatic way. Nothing jumped out or made noise. It was smaller than that. Subtle enough that I almost ignored it. I was doing rounds, checking vitals, logging numbers into the tablet. Room 102 had an elderly man recovering from surgery. Stable. Room 104, a woman on oxygen, asleep when I checked. Routine stuff. When I stepped back into the hallway, I glanced down toward the far end, and I saw a light on. It was coming from room 106. I remember pausing just for a second, not because it scared me, but because I was sure it had been off earlier. I had walked that same stretch, maybe 20 minutes before, and I would have noticed the light. I checked my tablet. Room 106 wasn't listed. Not occupied, not assigned, just not there. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the thin strip of light, spilling out from the slightly open door. It wasn't bright, just enough to cut into the dim hallway, like a line drawn where it didn't belong. My first thought was simple. Someone from staff must have set up the room. It happens sometimes. Admissions come in late, rooms get prepped ahead of time. Maybe the system hadn't updated yet. That made sense, so I walked toward it. Each step felt louder than it should have. That hollow sound from the tile again, echoing just a little too long after my foot lifted. I told myself it was just the acoustics. Old wing, old design. When I got to the door, I noticed it wasn't fully open, just enough to see inside without really seeing anything. I knocked lightly. No response. I pushed the door open the rest of the way. The room looked normal. Bed made, monitor off, no personal belongings, no IV stand in use, no signs anyone had been admitted yet. But the light was on. That's it. That was the only difference. I stepped inside anyway, just to be sure. "Hello?" I said, quiet, out of habit more than anything. Nothing answered. I walked over to the bed, checked the chart holder at the foot. Empty. No name, no paperwork. I even checked the bathroom, Lights off, clean, unused. By all accounts, the room was empty. So I turned the light off and left. That should have been the end of it. I even remember thinking how pointless it was to let something that small stick in my head. Lights get left on all the time. People forget. Systems lag. Nothing about it was unusual. But when I stepped back into the hallway, something didn't line up. I looked down at my tablet again. Room 106 still wasn't listed. I frowned, scrolling through the patient assignments, thinking maybe I'd missed it. 101, 102, 104, 107, 109. No 106. I glanced back at the door. The number was clearly printed beside it. For a second, I just stood there, trying to figure out what exactly felt wrong about that. Then it hit me. If the room didn't exist in the system, it shouldn't be in use. And if it wasn't in use, someone shouldn't have turned the light on. I told myself I was overthinking it. That's what night shift does to you. Too much quiet, not enough distraction. Your brain fills in gaps that aren't really there. So I moved on. Finished my rounds, logged my notes, sat at the nurse's station, scrolling through my phone, letting the hours pass the way they always do. By the time 3:00 a.m. rolled around, I'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. Until I looked back down the hallway again and saw the light on. Room 106, exactly the same as before. I didn't get up right away. That's the part I keep replaying. Not the light, not the room, not even what came after. Just that moment where I saw it again and chose to sit there for a few seconds longer than I should have. Like if I ignored it, it might correct itself. The hallway hadn't changed. Same dim lighting, same empty stretch, same quiet that settles into your ears until you forget what normal noise sounds like. But that line of light under the door was back, thin and steady, like it had never been turned off at all. I checked the time. 3:07 a.m. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation. Someone could have gone in there. Another tech, a nurse, maybe even housekeeping. It wasn't like I had the entire wing memorized down to every movement. People came and went. Still, I picked up my tablet and checked the assignments again. Nothing. No update. No new admission. No note about room 106 being prepped or in use. I zoomed out to the floor layout. It skipped straight from 105 to 107. No gap, no placeholder, nothing. I stared at that for longer than I should have. Then I stood up. This time I didn't rush. I walked slower, more deliberate, like I was trying to catch something in the act of being wrong. My footsteps echoed again, that same hollow sound tapping out ahead of me, bouncing off walls that felt just a little too far apart. Halfway down the hall, I stopped. The door to 106 was closed now, completely. No crack, no light. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear exactly, just resistance. Like my body had decided before my brain did that this wasn't worth checking again. But I kept going. When I reached the door, I didn't knock this time. I just stood there, staring at the number. Same as before. Same placement, same font. Nothing different. I reached for the handle and hesitated. I could hear something. Not a voice, not movement, just a faint, irregular clicking. Soft enough that I almost missed it. Like plastic tapping against plastic. Uneven, without rhythm. I told myself it was probably a monitor cycling on standby. Even unplugged equipment can make noise sometimes. Old machines, old wiring. That made sense. I opened the door. The light was off. The room was dark, except for the dim spill from the hallway behind me. Shapes settled into place slowly. The bed, the chair, the counter along the wall. Empty. But the sound didn't stop. Click, pause. Click, click, longer pause. I stepped inside, letting the door drift open behind me. Hello? Nothing answered. The clicking shifted slightly, like it had reacted to my voice. Not stopped, just adjusted. I turned my head toward the source. The monitor. It was off. Screen black. but one of the buttons along the side was depressed. Not fully, just enough to make contact, then release. Click, press, release, click. There was no one standing there. I moved closer, watching it. The button dipped again, slow this time, like something was applying pressure carefully, then letting go. I reached out and pressed it myself. The clicking stopped. The room went completely still. For a second, I felt ridiculous, standing there in the dark, hand on a machine, waiting for something that clearly wasn't happening. Then, I let go. Nothing. No clicking, no movement, just silence. I exhaled, longer than I realized I'd been holding it, and stepped back. Old equipment, I told myself. Faulty spring. It happens. I turned to leave. That's when the light came on. Not gradual. Instant. Bright enough to make me flinch. I spun back around. The room looked exactly the same as before. Except now, it wasn't empty. The bed was occupied. I didn't see anyone appear. There was no movement, no transition. 1 second it was empty. The next, there was a woman lying there, flat on her back, eyes closed, hands resting at her sides like they'd been placed there. I froze. Every part of my brain tried to catch up at once, throwing out explanations faster than I could process them. You didn't see her before. You missed it. The lighting was bad. You walked in too fast. All of it sounded thin. I stepped closer. Ma'am? No response. She looked normal. Pale but not unusually so for a patient. No visible injuries. No equipment hooked up to her. No IV, no monitor leads, nothing. I glanced at the chart holder again. Still empty. I swallowed. Ma'am, can you hear me? Her chest wasn't moving. That's what I noticed next. No rise, no fall. I moved to her side, fingers already reaching for her wrist out of habit. Her skin was cold. Not room temperature, cold. I pressed lightly, searching for a pulse. Nothing. For a moment, everything narrowed down to that single point of contact. My fingers against her wrist, waiting for something that didn't come. No pulse, no breathing. I straightened slowly, my eyes moving back to her face. Her eyelids twitched. Just once. Small. Quick. But enough. I stepped back immediately, heart kicking harder now, breaking through the calm I'd been forcing up until this point. Nope, I muttered under my breath. No, no, no. I turned toward the door, already reaching for my radio. I need a nurse in East Wing. Room. I stopped. Room what? I looked back at the number on the wall, then down at my tablet. Still no listing. The radio crackled softly in my hand, waiting. Behind me, the bed creaked. Not loud, just enough to carry. I didn't turn around right away. Hello? I called, voice tighter now. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stay still, okay? The silence that followed felt heavier than before. Then I heard it. A breath. Slow. Delayed. Like it had been waiting. I turned. Her chest rose. Once. Then stopped again. Her eyes were still closed, but her head had shifted. Just slightly. Angled toward me. Like she knew exactly where I was standing. I didn't move. That instinct, to step forward, to check again, to follow procedure, was still there. But something heavier sat on top of it now, holding me in place. Every training drill I'd gone through told me what to do next. Confirm vitals, call it in, start protocol. But none of those steps accounted for this. I forced myself to breathe evenly and stepped back toward the bed. Ma'am, I said, more firmly this time, like tone alone could anchor the situation to something normal. Can you hear me? Her chest didn't move again. I watched for it, counted without meaning to. Nothing. I reached for her wrist a second time. Still cold. Still no pulse. Behind me, the monitor clicked. I flinched, pulling my hand back. Click. I turned slowly. The button was moving again. Press. Release. Click. But this time, the screen flickered. Just once. A thin horizontal line flashed across the black display, and disappeared. I stared at it, waiting. The line came back, then flattened. A straight, unbroken line, stretching across the screen. No numbers, no waveform, just a line. Flat. My eyes drifted back to the bed. The woman's eyes were open now. Not slowly, not mid-blink, just open, wide, and fixed directly on me. I felt my throat tighten. There's a difference between looking at someone and being looked at. This wasn't passive. It wasn't unfocused or distant like most patients in this wing. It was direct, intentional. I took a step back. Her pupils didn't track me. They didn't need to. She was already looking exactly where I moved. Perfectly aligned. The monitor clicked again. Faster now. Click, 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 click. The flat line on the screen didn't change. I shook my head slightly, trying to ground myself. This isn't, I started, then stopped, because I didn't have a sentence to finish. I grabbed my radio again. I need assistance in East Wing, I said, forcing the words out, steadily. Possible unresponsive patient, room 106. Static answered me. Then, a voice. Repeat room number. I opened my mouth and hesitated. 106, I said anyway. A pause. Longer than it should have been. We don't have a 106 in East Wing, the voice replied. I swallowed. I'm standing in it. Another pause. Then, stay where you are. Someone's coming. The line went quiet. Behind me, the bed shifted. I didn't turn this time. I watched the reflection in the monitor screen instead. The woman was sitting up. Not gradually, not with effort, just upright. Her movements didn't match the sound. The mattress creaked after she was already in position. Her head tilted slightly to one side, still looking at me. Her mouth opened. No sound came out, but her jaw kept moving, like she was speaking anyway. The monitor's clicking synced with it. Every movement of her jaw matched a click, perfectly. Click, click, click. I took another step back and hit the counter behind me. There was nowhere else to go. The door was still open, but it felt farther away than it should have. Stop, I said, louder now. Just stay where you are. Her head straightened. The clicking stopped. For a second, everything froze again. Then she inhaled, a full breath this time, deep enough that I saw her shoulders lift. Her chest expanded and kept expanding. Too far, too much, like something was filling her past the point it should. I heard footsteps in the hallway, fast, coming closer. Relief hit me so suddenly it almost knocked the air out of me. Hey, I called, not taking my eyes off her. In here. The footsteps slowed near the door, then stopped. I waited. Hello? I called again. Nothing. I risked a glance toward the doorway. It was empty. When I looked back, she was standing, right at the edge of the bed, closer than before. I hadn't heard her move. Her feet were flat on the floor, but her posture was wrong. Too straight, too rigid, like her joints had locked into place instead of supporting her. Her arms hung at her sides. Then slowly, her right hand lifted. Her index finger extended and pointed, not at me, past me, toward the hallway. I turned. The corridor looked longer. That was the first thing I noticed. It stretched farther than it should have, the far end fading into a dimness that hadn't been there before. The other rooms, 101, 102, 104, they were still there, but the spacing felt off. Subtle, but enough to make my stomach drop. Do you see that? I said, not realizing I'd spoken out loud. No answer came. I turned back. She was closer, halfway between the bed and me now. Her arms still raised, fingers still pointing. Her mouth moved again. Click, click, click. The sound was louder now, no longer contained to the monitor. It was coming from her. Each movement of her jaw produced that same plastic, hollow click. I backed toward the door. Stay there, I said again, even though I knew it didn't matter. Her feet moved. One step, then another. The delay was still there, the sound of movement coming a fraction of a second after the motion itself. I reached the hallway and stepped out. The air felt colder, not dramatically, just enough to notice. I turned to head back toward the nurse's station and stopped. The hallway didn't connect the way it had before. Room numbers lined the walls, all of them wrong. Numbers skipping, repeating, out of order. I spun back toward 106. The door was gone. In its place was another room. The light inside flickered. Behind me, I heard it again. Click. Closer. I didn't turn this time. I started walking, then faster, then not quite running, but close enough that my steps lost their rhythm. The hallway stretched with me. Felt like it shifted slightly in my peripheral vision. Numbers changing if I tried to focus on them too long. The nurse's station should have been 20 seconds away. It wasn't. I stopped, breathing harder now. The clicking had stopped. The silence that replaced it was worse. I turned slowly. She was standing at the far end of the hall, too far to see clearly, but I could tell she was facing me, still, waiting. Then in a voice that didn't match the movement of her mouth, I heard it, soft, right next to me. I turned so fast, my shoulder hit the wall. There was no one there, just the hallway, stretching in both directions, wrong in ways I couldn't fully explain. The lights buzzed overhead, steady but dimmer than before, like something was draining them without flickering. You left the light on. The voice hadn't echoed, it hadn't carried. It had been close, intimate, close enough that I should have felt breath against my ear. But there was nothing. I pressed my back against the wall and tried to slow my breathing. Think, anchor yourself, find something consistent. Room numbers. I looked to my right, to my left. I blinked, looked back. The numbers stayed. That didn't help. My radio crackled suddenly, loud enough to make me flinch. East Wing, respond, the voice said. Same dispatcher as before, same flat tone. Status check. Relief cut through me again, thinner this time, but still there. I'm here, I said quickly. Something's wrong with this hallway. The rooms, they're not. Static swallowed the rest of my sentence. Repeat, the voice said. You're breaking up. I said the rooms aren't. Static again. Louder. Then silence. I lowered the radio slowly. From somewhere behind me, click. I closed my eyes for a second. Not to calm down, just to delay turning around. When I did, she was closer. Not halfway down the hall anymore. Maybe 10 steps away. Her posture hadn't changed. Still wrong. But her head was tilted further now, almost curious. Her mouth moved. Click, click. But the voice came from somewhere else. From the open doorway to my left. You didn't chart it. I turned. Room 103, at least that's what it said now, was open. The light inside was on. The bed was occupied. Another patient. This one sitting upright, back to the door. Perfectly still. I started, then stopped. Because I recognized the shape of the shoulders. The way they sat. The slight forward slump. It was me. Or something close enough that my brain didn't argue. The figure tilted its head slightly, like it was listening. My stomach dropped. Behind me, the clicking sped up. I didn't look. You have to chart it, the voice said again, now coming from inside the room. That's the rule. That's not a rule, I said, backing away. That's not. It is here. The figure on the bed stood up, slow, delayed, like the sound of movement lagged behind again. It turned. I saw its face. Not mine, but trying to be. Features slightly off. Mouth just a little too stretched, like it had learned the expression secondhand. It smiled. I turned and ran. This time I didn't hold back. My footsteps slammed against the tile, echoing too loud, too fast, like the hallway was feeding the sound back at me. Doors blurred past. Numbers shifted. The lights overhead seemed farther apart now, leaving darker gaps between them. Behind me, multiple clicks. Not just one, a chorus of them, out of sync. I didn't look back. The nurse's station had to be here. It had to connect. This place didn't just change layout. Buildings don't do that. I rounded the corner and stopped. The station was there, exactly where it should be. Bright, normal. Two nurses sitting behind the desk, talking quietly, like nothing had changed. The sound hit me first. Real sound. Paper shuffling, a chair moving, a pen tapping. I stepped toward it slowly. "Hey," one of them said, glancing up. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I let out a short, unsteady breath. "You have no idea," I said. "East Wing is something's wrong. There's a patient in 106 and—" They both frowned. "We don't have a 106, the other one said. My chest tightened. "No, I know that's what it says, but I was just there. There's someone in that room." They exchanged a look. The first nurse stood. "All right," she said. "Let's go take a look." Relief hit again, stronger this time. "Please." We walked back together. The hallway looked normal. Completely normal. Same spacing, same lighting, same rooms. No gaps, no stretching, no extra doors. We stopped where 106 should have been. There was no door, just a wall. Smooth, unbroken. I stared at it. "No," I said quietly. "It was right here." The nurse gave me a look. "You okay?" she asked. "You look pale." "I was just in there," I said. "There was a patient. I stopped, because I didn't know how to finish that sentence anymore. The other nurse tapped on the wall lightly. "Solid. No room here," she said. I shook my head. "That's not possible." They didn't respond to that. "Why don't you take 5? The first nurse said gently. "Get some water. Night shift can mess with you." I let them guide me back to the station. I didn't argue. Didn't try to explain again. Because part of me, the part that needed things to make sense, was already trying to fold what happened into something smaller. Stress, fatigue, imagination. That part was loud. Loud enough that I almost believed it. Almost. Until I sat down and looked at my tablet. No timestamp. Just there. Room 106. Patient unassigned. Status monitoring. Notes. Light left on. I stared at the screen. Slowly, without thinking, I lifted my hand and pressed the power button. The screen went black. Behind me,